Welcome to another episode of our personal empowerment audio program, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder, and our program today is about that time when the heart mind and the brain mind both agree and give a big double thumbs up, that subject we call enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm, boy, that's excitement, isn't it, on one level? It's interest at the very least. It's a whole range of attitudes. In the newsletter we put out every week, I wrote about this topic, that enthusiasm was one part goal and one part belief system. It sort of stands in the middle. Steve and I often talk about that center point between cause and effect, between stimulus and response, between what's done to you and what you do with it. And attitude is one way of describing that point of view in between stimulus and response. And that's where we find enthusiasm, and that's where we can put it if we don't find it. In other words, enthusiasm can come upon you and seize you, but you can also go out and conjure it up if you want to.
So let's talk about that kind that comes on you and seizes you, just grabs you and says, pay attention to me. This is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be great. Enthusiasm can grab people in different ways. It can come as an excitement, I can't wait until the next opportunity to do this kind of thing. And it can come on a deeper level, almost as like a commitment. I've found my passion. I've found my calling. I've found the thing that forever I'm going to be taking step by step toward achieving. It can be something that comes like in a burst of energy, or it can be something that's so powerful that it just takes over and runs you from there on in. It's an inside-out kind of feeling, but it's also a thought-reinforced feeling. It's an amazing experience. Enthusiasm actually comes from the concept of there being God within you coming out. You know, it's a passion, it's a love, it's a desire, it's a care, and there's just stuff that's there. You don't have to go find it. What you need to do is allow it to sort of take you over. By closing your eyes and going to the place we always call paradise and asking yourself, what do I love the most? What excites me the most? What would be the most wonderful thing? The things that you are enthusiastic about will emerge. They're inside of you. I always remember when I was in college, I just had to figure out what causes people to get interested in things, because I had this chemistry class that I wasn't interested in at all, and then I heard that physics was going to be even worse, so I just needed to figure out a way to get interested in things that I wasn't interested in. And I started by observing people who were really passionate, really enthusiastic about stuff, and I came across this amazing guy. I've told this story all my life, this guy named Dave, who was passionate, just like driven as a stamp collector. And, I thought, that seems kind of boring to me, like little square pieces of paper that don't do anything, But Dave was driven, and he just, every free moment of his life, he was in his stamp collection, and he has a stamp collecting hat in his stamp collecting room and his stamp collecting books and everything. When I observed him, it was really, really fascinating, because what I discovered was most of the time he was sort of in this spaced-in trance, not spaced out. His mind was there. He was spaced in trance. But every now and then, his eyes would sort of go up into a glaze, and his mind would sort of wander off, you could see, and he's got this little smile on his face. Every few minutes, he got this little smile on his face. And I finally figured out, to ask him, what's going on right then? Why is your mind going off into this thing that makes you smile, that makes you, seem real happy? It seems to happen every few minutes. And what he came to realize was what he was doing in those few moments was going off into the past or the future. He was going off into memories of previous International Stamp Collectors Association conventions, where he was a star and he was a big name and everybody was seeking him out. He was King Stamp. When the next year's one was coming up, he started fantasizing about how this year's going to be even better than. And I came to realize that this interest that he had in the moment of collecting the stamps, of looking at the little square pieces of paper and putting them in the right places, was passionately built. The fire was built under him. The enthusiasm was created by these memories of these wonderful experiences he had once a year at these International Stamp Collectors Association conventions, and the fantasies of the ones to come. So it occurred to me that if you don't feel interest in the now, you can create it through the past or the future. By imagining, by what you're doing now, something really wonderful is going to happen. That's where you can create a spark of an enthusiasm if enthusiasm's not there.
Along these lines, there's an interesting phrase, I lost interest. And, of course, that suggests I don't know how to find it, or I'm not interested enough in regaining my interest, kind of a catch-22. But let's challenge it directly. It's absolutely not true that once lost, you could not regain your interest. We teach people to do this all the time in life skills, accelerated learning programs, and personal development skill sets. The idea that you can indeed conjure an interest. You can find interest that's been lost or interest that you never even had. Let's say in school you have to study a subject that you say you're not interested in, but it's not an elective. It's required, mandatory. You got to take it, and you better do well because it pulls your GPA down if you don't. Well, the best way to motivate yourself in this way is to conjure up that interest, to find interest if you lost it, or, again, if you never had it. What's interesting about it? You have to find that. You can use little ploys like, this is what I do, ask myself, what might be interesting in this? Or I look, as Steve was just explaining, at people who are enthusiastic and excited about what they do, and I say, now, where do they find their interest? What for them is interesting about this thing? Or, again, in an academic situation, I might say, well, somebody wrote the damn book. Somebody's an expert at this. They must be interested in this. Or the professor that's standing up there in front of the class, he or she obviously is interested in this subject. They have excitement and enthusiasm. I'm not sure that's always true about teachers. They, at one point anyway, were excited and enthusiastic about it. And so where do the experts get it? You know, you can find something interesting in just about anything you turn and look at. The world is really that rich and that wonderful. A lot of it is just applying the mindfulness that we keep talking about here, learning to pay attention, using, here's a term we talked about a few weeks ago, using beginner's mind to look at this as if you've never seen it before. That way you sort of sidestep and escape your biases and prejudices that say, oh, this is not interesting. Well, look at it again as if it were, and consider that somebody's an expert at this. Somebody like Steve's childhood friend, Dave, even found interest in stamps. That story makes me laugh, too, because I can't imagine collecting stamps. But at one point, as a kid, I was interested in collecting coins, so a stamp collector might look at me askew.
Yeah, I think it's not about the stamps, you know, and that it's not about whatever it's about. It's about whatever you find inside your heart that you can, like, make grow and make wonderful. I think Dave had inside his heart a passion for something like stamp collecting, and he found something else to collect. If in early childhood he didn't somehow get exposed to stamps in some positive way, or if the other side of the coin, if he got exposed to stamps in a real negative way, he might have chosen coins or something else instead. But we all have inside of us enthusiasm. We all have passion. We all have, and it's natural. It's like, it's inborn. You take a look at the earliest childhood development processes, and what they're doing is they're reaching for things that are interesting to them. They're looking for colors, they're looking for shapes, they're looking for new textures and things, and they're very enthusiastic when they discover something new. It's built into us. And fortunately, I think one of the most wonderful things about being an adult, you know, and although that comes from the word done growing, I don't really mean adult done growing. I mean, once we're out of like school and authority, we become our own authority. At that point, we get to choose not to be interested in things. I think that's one of the greatest freedoms that we have, is I don't want to be interested in that, and I don't have, you can't make me. I don't have to be, I don't want to be. I don't have to be enthusiastic about the things you're enthusiastic about. I don't even have to be enthusiastic about the things my wife is enthusiastic about. I just have to listen and carefully and be there with her. I don't have to share her enthusiasm for things she's enthusiastic for, nor she with mine. I have to enjoy that she has that enthusiasm. So one of the great things is nobody can make me be enthusiastic about things I don't want to be enthusiastic about. But there are a lot of things in my life that I've come across where I wasn't initially enthusiastic about. My heart didn't go, yeah, but my head said this would be smart. This would be a good thing to know. This would be a really wise thing to learn about. And the primary of those, I think, was emotions. At some point, my heart kept going, no, I want to live this ostrich life of keeping my head in the sand and not paying attention to bad stuff going on around. And then at some point, my thinking mind said, no, I need to get enthusiastic about really understanding myself deeper than that. Why do I hide? Why did I go all those years pretending something that wasn't, and why do we delude ourselves? And so I think at some point I got enthusiastic about self-discovery, and that opened up a whole lot of doors for me. So it's in there. And again, I'm so happy that I'm in a place in my life where nobody can make me be enthusiastic about things I don't want to be enthusiastic about, but I'm also very excited about the fact that if I see something I intellectually would think was good for me, and I'm not initially emotionally excited about it, I can get myself excited about those things. And so, therefore, I can become a great learner. And much of my life has been based on the fact that I'm great at getting excited about whatever it is my mind thinks is smart for me to know.
Yeah, I sure am glad somebody loves accounting, because I hate doing taxes. There's not very many things I'm not interested in, but that's one of them. So I can go hire a guy. I've used the same guy for 35 years, and he's happy to do my taxes. He's really good at it. In fact, he teaches other people how to do taxes because he loves it. He's interested in it. So the point I want to make here, following on what Steve has just said, is that everybody's interested in something. Now, you might say, well, there are those periods in my life, or periods in some people's lives, especially young people, maybe as teenagers, we go through periods where we appear not to be interested in anything. Well, we could write that off as hormones. I'm not sure exactly what that's about. There could be a number of reasons for it, but I think it's an illusion or a delusion. There's a saying in the personal development field that there are no boring lives, only boring people. And so if you say, I'm bored, I'm just not interested, at any age or stage in your life, that's an attitude. That's a funky, wrong-headed attitude that you've picked up for whatever reason. Maybe it's a defense. Maybe you're hurt, for example. Maybe somebody that you loved or were really interested in romantically rejected you. And in that context, everything has gone south and turned sour, and you're bored and not interested in anything. Again, probably hormonal. It'll pass. But don't settle for that. If you believe that life has become boring for you, take some ownership. Take personal responsibility for that lack of interest. You're just not applying yourself. Jump in the car and go off to the library. Or, in this day and age, just sit down at any computer or iPad or a lot of telephones now and get internet access and start Googling things. You'll find something that you're interested in. It's like your ability to breathe or to beat your heart, to digest food. It's just part of living that we have an ability, I would say even a tendency, to be interested in certain things. And don't be surprised if most of the people you know don't share those interests. It's part of what makes us unique. And then build on that interest. There's where we get to words like enthusiasm or excitement, or Steve used the word inspiration and suggested their derivation had spiritual overtones. It really does. To inspire means to breathe into, just like conspire is to breathe with, or expire is to die. You breathe your last breath. So the idea of some kind of divinity, some kind of divine revelation or inspiration or enthusiasm being breathed into from on high, those are the roots of it. It's interesting. Even the word genius comes from the old belief that the Greeks had in something called daemons. That word has become demon and taken on a lot of negative connotations, but the Greeks used to spell it Daemon, and they saw it as a wonderful thing. Their inspiration or revelation, they believed, came from having a kind of a guardian angel or a spirit guide they called a daemon that would whisper in their ear. Also from the Arabian version of that, their word for the daemon is jinn, meaning spirit. And once again, not to get sidetracked here, but that's become a negative connotation over the year. You talk to people from the Middle East, and if they use the word jinn, they're talking about an evil spirit or a negative spirit, but that's not always been the case. Jinn used to mean a wonderful spirit, like the daemon that whispers in your ear. Genius is really rooted in that word jinn. So whether you think it comes through you or whether it's generated from within you is not the important thing. The important thing is if it's not available, you can conjure it up. You can fake it till you make it. You can motivate yourself. And isn't that what we're talking about? How do you motivate yourself? What's the drive? What's the push? Where do you find it? And what do you do if it's not there? Again, fake it till you make it. Find the interest. As an exercise, look at anything that at first blush doesn't really interest you and find something interesting in it. Look at it, looking for something you don't know or don't understand that triggers other questions in your mind, and that's a wonderful feeling. I think that feeling of discovery generates all kinds of positive chemicals inside your head, and I want more of that experience. Again, Steve's right. It's not the stamp itself or the coin or the insect that you collect and pin on a styrofoam board. The object is not the important thing. The important thing is that we're less than complete as human beings if we don't pursue our interests and respond to any period in our life that might seem to be boring with a redetermination, a rededication to find something interesting about life and then pursue it, go do it, develop it.
So we have interests, passions, enthusiasms that we find in childhood, and somehow they go away. What causes us to lose interest? What causes us to have our enthusiasm wane and fade away? And I think the answer almost always is fear. That we come across something in the process of imagining outcomes that leads us into the negative, that leads us into the pessimism. And we start to think, well, if I do this and it doesn't work, this is what's going to happen. Or if I put all my energy into this and it fails, or if I put all my time into this and it's wasted, and we start to go off into this negative thinking of what could happen. And that's an okay place to go to explore, to see, what could happen. But it's when we get stuck in the loop there, instead of going off into what causes enthusiasm to grow and build and being more inspired, is the optimism, is the imagining what good could happen if I do this, what great outcomes, what positive things, how am I going to be a better person, how am I going to love myself more, how am I going to enjoy the time that I spend doing that, all the possible positive outcomes. If we get into a loop of that, if we get into, like, every time we think about this thing, we think about what wonderful stuff could happen, then we really get inspired, then we really get enthusiastic about the process. And it's those people who see those dreams and believe in those dreams, but don't get too attached to those dreams. Just that's my bullseye, and I've got a lot of passion, and I'm aiming toward it. I know the outcome might be a little better, or might be a little worse, but I know what I want, and I'm aiming toward it. That's what causes the enthusiasm to grow. It's the pessimism that causes it to fade. It's the optimism that causes it to grow. I think that's the basic core concept here. Now, why do people move off toward pessimism or optimism? There's learned behaviors. We're not born that way, but early childhood, you start to see kids being more optimistic or more pessimistic, and I think the school system and parents alike can do something about this and help children say, yes, it's perfectly okay to explore what could go wrong. It's okay to worry, but give at least equal or more time to imagining things going right and make that a lifestyle habit. And then the enthusiasm that's naturally in there will find more and more outlets.
Steve and I share an enthusiasm for music, and Steve especially with lyrics, and me more so with melody. But I'm thinking of a lyric about accent the positive, and I think they say you got to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative, and don't mess with Mr. In Between. Getting ready for the show today, Steve was talking about the old, from the 50s, High Hopes.
Yeah, the old Frank Sinatra tune about, remember that little old ant who wanted to move the rubber tree plant, but anyone knows an ant can't move a rubber tree plant, but he's got high hopes. And, of course, oops, there goes another rubber tree plant is the punchline of that song. The idea here is not that you could accomplish everything that you dream about, but that's not the point. The point is that if you dream about things that you could accomplish, you create enthusiasm, you create passion. And as we pointed out so many times in this program, the ride, the journey is more important than the destination. When you're aiming toward the thing you want the most, or at least now believe it's the thing you want the most, then and you have the most enthusiasm for that more than anything else, and therefore the experience of moving from here toward there is a more passionate, exciting, enthusiastic experience. So when you're dealing with things that you had enthusiasm for and lost it, look at the fear. When you're looking at things that your mind says, I should be enthusiastic, or it would be best for me to be enthusiastic about these things, but I'm not, look to the joy, look to the possible rewards, the great outcomes. When it comes to things that you are enthusiastic about and you want to become more enthusiastic about, then spend more time imagining better and better outcomes, getting more and more clear about the great possible outcomes, and then enjoy the conscious step-by-step process of going there. One of the greatest things about enthusiasm is it brings you right into the now, right into the exact moment of the thing you're doing. So you go off into the future and imagine great rewards to get enthusiastic, and then you feel that enthusiasm with every conscious step you take toward what it is you want the most.
Yeah, I don't want to bring everybody down here, but let's talk about depression for a minute. We all know that. We've all been depressed for times. Acute depression is real strong, big depression, but it doesn't last very long. There is something called chronic depression, and there can be a number of reasons for it. It could be some genetic predisposition. Depression can even be a symptom of certain physical maladies or illnesses, like thyroid problems can cause a condition that really feels like emotional depression. But for most of us, it doesn't last. Like any other feeling, it doesn't really last very long. If it lasts more than 3 days, you might want to get some help. But short of that, just watch it, reminding yourself that your feelings always change. Emotional feelings are often compared to water for that very reason. They're fluidic. They flow. It's moving on downstream. It doesn't really last. And sometimes the water is big and rapid, white water splashing on the rocks very fast. And sometimes a little farther downstream, it's nice and smooth and calm. Your emotions are like that. So, or the weather, it's going to pass. But notice how depression makes you feel as if you're not interested in anything, much less enthusiastic. And what's it come from? Well, I've already said sometimes there's a symptom of an illness and sometimes it's genetic, but for the vast majority of us, and most of the time, depression seems to be related to anxiety and frustration. Sometimes said simply, inner-directed anger. When you get mad at yourself, when you get frustrated, it's almost like, well, I'm just going to pull the plug and back out of life. I'm going to back into this corner and cover myself with a blanket. I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to retreat. I don't have to take this. I don't have to live like this. But how long can you withdraw from life or retreat into the seeming safety of your little corner with the blanket pulled over your head? The longing for life, the natural and instinctual love of life is going to urge you to come forward. That's the built-in enthusiasm that we're talking about. It's there, even if it doesn't appear to be there, even if you go through short periods in your life of depression or sadness or melancholia, or you just got the blues. Sing a little song, sing the blues, or sing a happy song like High Hopes. It doesn't much matter. It's going to generate those endorphins and those serotonins. It's going to make you feel good. It's going to generate interest that soon can be enthusiasm. Here's a great technique. When you feel sad and depressed, you feel like you've lost interest and enthusiasm, do something for someone else. All right? Give yourself away. That could be the missing link. There's much too much self-centeredness in our world, in our society in particular. And we're aware of that because we're in the self-help industry, self-improvement. And sometimes people criticize that. They take it out of context and they say, well, that's all you're interested in is me, or as George Harrison said, I, me, mine. Is that all that drives you? Well, you can always spot a phony in this field, if indeed that's the way it appears. We always talk about the self as part of humanity. You have to follow through on self-development. It's self-discovery, self-development, and then loving other people, a follow-through, service to other people. So maybe that's all that you need to do to conjure up that interest and to become enthusiastic, is find a way to help other people. If I say to be of service, well, sometimes that sounds too heavy. Be of service, a life of service. How about just help, What do I do? When do I do it? You do whatever you can, whenever it occurs to you. Again, it's more of an attitude.
Yeah, there is this concept that no one is an island. I'm reminded of a wonderful Paul Simon song, I'm a Rock. He said, I have my books and my poetry to protect me. I'm shielded in my armor, hiding in my room, safe within my womb. I touch no one and no one touches me. I'm a rock. I'm an island. Well, we aren't.
Nice try.
There are times that we can retreat and, have my books and my poetry to protect me too. But that's, a short-term experience. We have to come out of the shell. We have to reemerge into the sunlight again. And the analogy Michael used about weather is perfect because it is. There's rainy days and there's sunny days, and there's never always rainy days forever, and there's never always sunny days forever. And, this too shall pass is one of the greatest lessons a human can learn. But when we come out of that temporary experience, not a lifestyle, but that temporary experience of being in the sad part of our lives and come back into the sunshine, then how do we rekindle that enthusiasm? How do we rekindle that stuff? And one of the most beautiful ways is to help somebody else, is to touch another human being. And then you've got the spark of two working together, and then maybe 3 and maybe 5 and maybe 20. And it's not even the size of the group, it's the passion in the group. One of the greatest things that creates more and more enthusiasm is to find other people who share your enthusiasm and share your enthusiasm with them. I mean, again, for Dave, it was wonderful, all the hundreds and hundreds of hours sitting in front of his stamp collection, but the greatest moments were at the International Stamp Collectors Association convention with all the other crazy stamp collectors who felt the way he did, who shared the passion he shared. Whatever it is that you're in love with, there are other people who are in love with it too, and sometimes seeking them out, finding how they create passion, how they build their enthusiasm can be a wonderful way of doing it. But for me, it can be a group experience, it can be a solitary experience, but for me, the most important part of the experience of enthusiasm is nurturing. It is when it scares me because, I get so excited about something that I start to go off into worrying something bad could happen, and we all do that, that I have a way of dealing with that doesn't create a loop, that when I get that negative thought popping in, because love brings up everything unlike self, when I get that negative thought popping in, I have this autopilot thing that reminds me that, wait a minute, I don't want to attach to that thought. That's a thought, but I want to let go of that thought. So take a breath now, stop, be conscious. Okay, now let that thought go. And now let's go back over to those positive thoughts over here. I love when the negative thoughts come up because they make me stop. It's a yellow light. I have to pay attention. But then I can choose to not get into a loop with that negative thought. Okay, now I understand. I don't want to get too enthusiastic about this particular aspect of it because thank you for the lesson, but I'm not going to start worrying about that bad thing happening over and over and over again. That's the problem, I think. That's what kills the enthusiasm, is when we have a negative thought. That's fine, but we attach to it and make a loop out of it, and it goes over and over and over again, and dampening and killing our enthusiasm.
Remember this. If you can't find your interest, if it's difficult for you to get excited or be enthusiastic, it's because you're not paying attention. The more I think about this, doing this program and listening to Steve and myself talk about enthusiasm and reviewing now and in my mind and in my body and in my heart area, what do I love to do? What excites me? There's a few things that are obvious that float to the top. I'm thinking about my music, for example. If you were on Facebook and you came to that section in your profile that said interests, what would you put down there, right? Well, there's backgammon. I love backgammon. There's my amateur radio interest that led to commercial radio and even these podcasts. And I could ask myself, why am I interested in this or that or the other thing? But, as we round third here and head for our audio journey, I'd like to argue that everything potentially is of interest. This universe is so miraculous that we ought to be able to at least become interested, if not enthusiastic, in virtually everything. In essentially anything, if you look at it right. If you are willing to develop your innate curiosity and the ability to shift your attention, to peak it and tweak it in such a way that you find something truly fascinating, entrancing in this or that or the other thing. I mean, when you were a little kid, you used to be interested in the way ants built ant hills, and you could sit for an hour in front of an ant hill as a little kid with your head in your hands and just be intrigued and absolutely fascinated by these ants. Or I remember these little roly-polies we used to play with, these bugs that would turn into little balls or BBs and roll around. And that was...
We called those pill bugs.
Pill bugs?
That's what we call them, yeah.
No, we called them roly-polies, but they were fascinating. Well, then you become an adult and you're too dignified to get down on your hands and knees or to be seen staring at insects. I used to be enthusiastic about climbing trees. One of my favorite things in the world to do was climb trees. Well, adults don't seem to climb trees very much, and it's not that we have an inability to climb trees. All of a sudden, you hit 18, you can't climb a tree anymore. No, there's some sense of dignity or propriety that says adults don't sit in trees. Well, maybe we should sit in a tree. One of the things I used to love about being up in trees was nobody would look for you up there except another kid. It was sort of a universe where you could exist above the interest level of any adult. The adults that would walk under you, they would never look up. Well, they've lost something, haven't they? They've lost interest in looking up, in being in the tree, in the way it felt to be up in a tree. People make fun of tree huggers, but when was the last time you did hug a tree or climb a tree or sit up high in the branches with the birds and the squirrels and not move, just sit there quietly and watch? Again, it's easy to criticize, but the idea of simply watching life is so radical, so fundamental, and yet so essential to our contentment and our happiness, and yes, our enthusiasm, that we have to cultivate this ability to, every once in a while, set aside periods in your day when you don't do anything except just witness without judgment, mindfully, what's going on. Now, especially in the West, this is true around the world, but especially in the Western Hemisphere, we feel that we have to constantly be producing, doing something, manufacturing or building or repairing or replacing. We've got to be productive. We've got to, it seems to me, micromanage our lives as if without our constant work at maintaining some kind of existence, the world will stop turning, at least for us. Well, I challenge you. Set aside a 2-minute period and then maybe a 10-minute period. And I dare you to set aside maybe even an hour a day to just pay attention to nothing except your physical senses and sensations, what's happening to you right now. And as soon as you find the mind dragging you off in one direction, the past, or another direction, fears of the future, as soon as you find the mind trying to drive you in a particular direction, do something. At least make a decision about this. Solve this problem. Work this out. Try harder, Michael, to understand why this is happening. That's the source of your stress and your anxiety. That's what's crowding out the unhappiness and the peace of mind that everybody says they really want. And so the proof is in the pudding. Try it. You could call this a meditation. You could call it simply paying attention. But if you set aside short periods in your day to be mindful, you will become interested, you will find your source of motivation, and that can easily develop into the enthusiasm and the excitement, the zest and the zeal for life that is so fulfilling. It's what you've been looking for. And it's not what you're enthusiastic about, it's that you're enthusiastic. That's who you are in life. Somebody who's interested, passionate, and made that connection that says, it can't be only about me. I've got to share this with somebody else.
You know, the great contradiction comes in two wonderful quotes. Norman Vincent Peale said, essentially, the secret of success is to be genuinely interested in other people. And then Peter Townsend of The Who said, all men are bored with other men's lives. And I think the thing is, it's true. Like most of the people in the world, when men especially, when other men are talking, are thinking about what am I going to get to say as soon as they stop talking? When am I going to get my chance to tell my story, put my stuff in? Most men are bored with other men's lives. You know, I'm interested in my life. But those people who have the ability to become genuinely interested in other people besides themselves, and I think that's a sort of a sign of maturity, you know, because children are incapable of doing this. But once we grow and get to the ability to be genuinely interested in other people's lives, then their enthusiasm for our enthusiasm builds our enthusiasm, and enthusiasm can grow and like really spark and become huge. Enthusiasm can exist all by yourself. You can be enthusiastic all by yourself, but boy, it sure is much more powerful, much more intense when you share it with other people, and it can be, the spark of it can be born by finding that spark in somebody else as well. So the challenge is to actually get interested, and if you're not interested in something, then you can get interested in that thing, and you know, you can do it by imagining something in the future that would be wonderful, some outcome that you would get by doing this, or maybe there was something similar that you did in the past that was interesting that you could like associate or feel the relationship to. But the bottom line is, interest is always something that you can create within you, because nothing's interesting, nothing's boring. As Michael said, people are just interested or people are just bored. It's a choice. It's a conscious choice. Sometimes it's really easy to be interested in something, and almost everybody else is too. And sometimes it's really challenging to get interested in something, but somebody did, and you could too if you chose to. So whatever it is, be it what seems to be the most exciting thing in the world to you, or what seems to be the most boring thing in the world to you, you can get interested in it if you want to. As I said earlier, one of my greatest freedoms is that I get to choose to not be interested in those things that don't interest me.
So let's install this. Let's do an audio journey. Let's go to paradise. Narrow awake, the alpha brainwave level. Because when you quiet the mind, you calm the emotional nature.
It doesn't mean you make it go away. It just means it's like the water, instead of churning where you can't look into it, it's now calm. Just as much water, just as hot or just as cold, but now you can see deeply into it.
So provided this is a good time for you to do this, I want you to get comfortable. You can sit or lay down. Unless you're tired, I'd rather you sit. I don't want you to fall asleep. Nothing wrong with that, but you wouldn't hear what we're saying to you here. This is an opportunity for you to sit and relax and practice mindfulness, practice being interested and excited and enthusiastic. So get comfortable, sit balanced, and begin to take a couple of slow, deep breaths, pulling in strength and power, and as you exhale, letting it go. Feel yourself relaxing, muscles unwinding, softening like butter on a warm day.
Like butter on a warm day. Keeping its shape, but getting softer and more fluid. Feel your body melting into itself, unwinding, releasing, relaxing. And as the mind slows down in paradise, where everything's quiet and beautiful and nice, I want you to get in touch with that place inside where that spark of enthusiasm does reside. For example, are you enthusiastic about your life getting better and better than it's ever been before? Just that concept. Imagine that concept and open up that door and see where that spark of enthusiasm starts. And from where does that spark now grow? Feel the enthusiasm beginning inside and feel it and let it grow. But notice the origin, the place it was born, and always know that you can return to find another spark inside yourself there anytime you yearn. So feel the enthusiasm for life getting better, much better than it's ever been before. And feel that enthusiasm grow and grow, and now begin to explore where else it goes inside of you. From that place it did begin, where else does that enthusiasm go? And feel it move around within.
If you knew there was a treasure someplace nearby, you were certain of it, but you had no map, and you didn't know where that treasure was, I bet you'd look around a little bit. That's what we're suggesting. Know that enthusiasm is innate. It's built in. It came with you as surely as your heart, lungs, and liver did. Your ability to think logically and your ability to feel passionate love. It's all built in. So's enthusiasm. You have it. It's there. A treasure inside that you can use to enrich your life and have then even more to share with other people. Hey, look what I found. I'm really excited about this. What's the first thing you want to do when you're happy? Share it with someone. And so, enthusiasm is a component of all relationships, starting with the relationship you have with yourself, and then sharing with others, moving out into the world. Hey, look what I found that's interesting. I'm really excited about this. This is the heart and soul of enthusiasm. How do you look around? Well, we talked earlier about going to the library. Lots of folks say, well, I don't really have time to do that. Maybe you don't even know where the library is in your town anymore, but I bet you have a computer or access to a computer and can use a search engine like Google or some other to look around on the internet. Just freely associate. Type a word or a couple of words that just pop into your head into that search engine and hit the return key and see what comes up. And then follow your intuitive sense. What here interests me, and go in that direction. And then that'll have links to another area, and you can hopscotch around the internet, finding things that are of interest to you. And while you seem to be exploring the universe around you, don't you see how interest and enthusiasm reveals your interior landscape? Yes, you're learning about the world around you through your interest, your enthusiasm, but it's revealing the universe within. And it's how you best come to know yourself. Look at all the admonitions by all the wise women and men in all the cultures and all the times of our history. It always includes know thyself, or to thine own self be true. Or there's wisdom in knowing others, but there's enlightenment in understanding what floats your boat. What really interests you? You have the ability to do that. And isn't that interesting and exciting?
So imagine yourself a bit more enthusiastic. Just a little bit. Doesn't have to be drastic. Just enough so you can tell that there's a clear difference here, that you're feeling a little more love and a lot less fear, and you're like confident and ready to surge and feeling those inner wonderful urges that say, yeah, I want to do something. I want to be something. I want to get out there and create. It feels wonderful. It feels powerful. It really feels great. Let that grow. Just a little bit each day, that feeling of enthusiasm, living in an enthusiastic way, and feel the passion and feel the flow and feel it help you learn and grow and find out and know whatever it is you wish to desire to find. It's always there inside or outside of your mind. You can use your mind to go within, or you can start to explore outside, and you can begin to find out whatever it is you're interested about. You can remove any curiosity. You can handle any doubt. It's a wonderful feeling that you get to explore. When you're feeling enthusiastic, you want to do it more.
So choose now something that has occurred to you during this program that you really are interested in and could be enthusiastic about. Just grab one of those things that's popped into your head in the last 45 or 50 minutes and hold that gently in the palm of your hand. As you prepare to come back into the wide-awake state, remembering what you'll see in just a few moments when I ask you to open your eyes. Held gently in the palm of your hand, as if fragile for the moment. This particular interest, this area of excitement, maybe it's something that you've always known you're interested in, and maybe it's brand new, and you're not even sure. Well, you're thinking, I could be really excited about this now that I think about it. Now that it bubbled up and occurred to me in this quiet, calm, relaxed state. I'm going to follow this up, you say to yourself. As you breathe, pulling in air, hold, and now exhale just as slowly, and open your eyes wide awake and alert, rested and refreshed, feeling fine, better than before, and I'll bet a little more enthusiastic.
It's a wonderful feeling to be more enthusiastic and to know that access is there. You know, I was thinking just the other day that We baby boomers, we're the very, very first generation in history that didn't have to go out to get information. Like our parents' generation, they had to go to the library. We were the first ones that had the World Book. We were the first ones that had encyclopedias in our house. So if we got interested in an idea, it just didn't fade away. We could go look it up and find out more about it. Now, today, of course, you can get on the internet and not only find out what all the world's leading experts have to say about it, but what thousands and thousands of other interested people in the subject have to say. It's an amazing time to be interested. It's an amazing time to be enthusiastic because access to the whole world's enthusiasm is right there at your fingertips.
I was thinking Wikipedia and the other wiki sites. In Hawaiian, the word wiki means do it fast.
Quick.
And speedy. Yeah, get it done right now. Hey, thanks very much for listening and supporting this premium audio series, Finding Yourself in Paradise. If you are using the podcast feature to capture these programs, check into the website every once in a while. There's a built-in player there, and also a tool you can use to forward as many of these for free to your friends and others who may pop into your head when you hear this program or that program. You think of Bill or Sally, well, send the program to them. They'll appreciate it. We'll appreciate it. You'll feel good about it. And that's part of your 99 cents a week, the ability to forward these programs so effortlessly, so freely. You'll find that link. It's real self-explanatory when you go to focusedpassion.com. Right after the W's, .focusedpassion.com. And look around there. Look at the links up in the top. There's all kinds of really cool stuff. There's articles that are written in white papers and links to other websites. Check it out. focusedpassion.com. Send one to a friend. And as always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha from Maui.